Most horror stories are fiction, but what you're about to hear actually happened. These aren't tales from the deep internet or someone's overactive imagination. These are true encounters from real people in quiet suburbs, old houses, and roadside towns across America. So turn off the lights, plug in your earbuds, and get ready. These are 3 true scary stories for those brave enough to try and sleep afterward.
In 1998, John M., a 38-year-old computer technician, moved into a 2-story Victorian house in a remote rural area of Pennsylvania with his wife Laura and their 2 daughters, Emily, 9, and Rachel, 6. The house was surrounded by thick woods with no close neighbors. It was unusually cheap for its size and condition, but the family assumed the owners were just eager to sell. There were no detailed questions asked about its past. For the first few weeks, everything seemed normal. The house was old but quiet. The daughters adjusted to their new rooms, Laura focused on setting up the home, and John worked late nights repairing computers from his home office in the living room. About 3 weeks after moving in, John began hearing something strange. At first, it sounded like a faint whisper coming from the basement. The voice called his name softly. This only happened at night, usually between 2 and 3 a.m. John believed it was just old pipes, air inside the walls, or his tired mind playing tricks on him. But the whispers continued every night. Always his name, always from the basement door. Laura and the children never heard anything, even when John tried to wake them up. Over time, the whispers became more disturbing. Sometimes it sounded like more than one voice. Other times it sounded like a child quietly crying. Soon after, John began noticing a strange smell in the basement. It was a faint, rotten odor that appeared randomly and disappeared just as quickly. Cleaning did nothing. Air fresheners did nothing. The smell always returned. One night, nearly a month after the whispers began, John heard the voice say something different. Instead of his name, it whispered, "He's still here." That was the night he decided to go down into the basement. At 2:17 a.m., when the whisper started again, John took a flashlight and slowly opened the basement door. The air inside felt unusually cold. The basement was unfinished, with stone walls, old wooden support beams, and a dirt floor. As he walked toward the back corner where the whisper always seemed to come from, he noticed something carved into the brick wall. There were dozens of names etched into the wall. All were written unevenly and at the height of a child's hand. Some letters were misspelled. Beneath several of the names were deep scratch marks, as if someone had tried desperately to claw their way out. John stood frozen, unable to explain what he was seeing. He never told Laura about the wall that night. Several months later, a plumber was called to fix a leaking pipe in the basement. While inspecting the wall in the same corner John had seen the names, the plumber noticed that one section sounded hollow. When they broke through the bricks, they discovered a hidden room behind the wall, an old root cellar that had been completely sealed off for decades. Inside this hidden cellar were scattered children's toys, decayed clothing, and dozens of small, worn-down shoes. Beneath a layer of dirt, they found bones, human bones, small ones. Police were called immediately. The house was sealed off within hours. After forensic examination, the coroner confirmed that the remains belonged to at least 6 children. Based on decomposition and surrounding materials, the deaths were estimated to have occurred between 1900 and 1920. Many of the bones showed signs of starvation and physical abuse. Some showed damage consistent with restraint. None of the names found carved into the wall
matched any missing children records in the state. No suspects were ever officially named. The previous owners of the house could not be located. No arrests were made. Strangely, after the hidden cellar was opened, the whispers stopped completely. John and his family moved out the same weekend the coroner's report was finalized. They left most of their belongings behind and never returned. The house still stands today. It remains unoccupied. Local residents say that occasionally, late at night, dim lights can still be seen coming from the basement, even though the house no longer has active electricity. In 2002, a woman named Laura worked the night shift at a 24-hour diner located on the outskirts of Batavia, a quiet suburban town in Illinois. Her shift usually ended around 3 a.m. Every night, she parked her car in the same spot behind the diner, directly under an old streetlight near the back entrance. The light had been there long before she started working, and it was the only working light in that part of the parking lot. For several months, nothing unusual happened. Laura followed the same routine every night. She parked under the light, worked her shift, and drove home through empty streets. The area was quiet and crime was rare. One night in December 2002, things suddenly felt different. When Laura arrived for work, she noticed the street light flickering on and off. The light had always been steady before. As she turned off her engine, her car battery unexpectedly died. She had no previous issues with the vehicle. A coworker helped her jump-start it, and she went inside to begin her shift. Throughout the night, Laura felt uneasy. She had a constant feeling that she was being watched whenever she stepped outside near the back door. Each time she took out the trash, the flickering streetlight caught her attention. The parking lot was empty, but the feeling did not go away. Around 1:30 a.m., a regular customer, a long-haul truck driver who stopped by almost every night for coffee, noticed that Laura seemed distracted. When she casually mentioned the streetlight and her dead battery, the driver warned her about the area near the light. He told her that in the 20 years he had been stopping at the diner, 3 different people who regularly parked under that same light were now dead. 2 had died in unexplained circumstances, and 1 had reportedly gone missing years earlier. He referred to the light as cursed. Laura did not take the warning seriously at the time. She assumed it was just a superstition or a story meant to scare her during a slow night. When her shift ended and she returned to her car, she noticed something disturbing. Deep scratch marks had appeared along the driver's side door. The marks were long, uneven, and looked like they had been made with sharp claws rather than keys. Laura did not own any pets, and there were no animals in the area large enough to cause that kind of damage. None of the nearby parked cars were scratched. She reported it to her manager, but no clear explanation was found. Over the next few weeks, Laura continued to feel uneasy whenever she parked under the streetlight. The light continued to flicker almost every night. Her car experienced repeated electrical problems that had never occurred before. The feeling of being watched became stronger, especially during the late hours of her shift. Within a few weeks, Laura quit her job without giving a detailed explanation to her coworkers. Shortly after leaving the diner, she moved out of town. She later told friends that she no longer felt safe working near that streetlight. Years later, in the late 2010s, the diner underwent major renovations. The owners decided to replace the old electrical wiring connected to the streetlight. During excavation around the base of the pole, construction workers uncovered a small, rusted metal tin sealed tightly beneath the concrete. Inside the container, they found a deteriorated photograph of a young woman. In the photo, her mouth appeared to be sewn shut with dark thread. Alongside, a name was written on a folded piece of paper, Margaret. Beneath the name was a date, October 12th, 1963. No official missing persons record connected directly to that name and date was ever found. The contents of the tin were turned over to authorities for investigation. No public conclusion was released. Despite the upgrades, the same streetlight still flickers to this day. People continued to park beneath it, unaware of what was found buried beneath its base decades later. In the fall of 1985, a traveling salesman named Gary checked into a historic mountain hotel located deep in the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. He had been driving for hours through worsening weather conditions when an early season blizzard began to roll in. With visibility dropping and roads becoming dangerous, he decided to stop at the nearest available hotel for the night. The hotel was old, built several decades earlier and known for housing tourists during ski season. That night, the lobby was nearly empty due to the storm. When Gary approached the front desk, the clerk handed him a room key and quietly said the room number, 413. As he passed over the key, the clerk paused briefly and muttered that the room had not been used in years. He quickly brushed off the comment and continued with the check-in process. Exhausted from travel, Gary did not question it. He took the key and made his way to the 4th floor using the slow-moving elevator. The hallway on that floor was dimly lit and noticeably colder than the others. Room 413 was located at the far end of the corridor. Inside, the room appeared normal, but outdated. The furniture was old-fashioned, the carpet was worn, and the radiator along the wall hissed loudly as it struggled to produce heat. Gary unpacked only the essentials and went to bed early due to fatigue. Later that night, he woke repeatedly due to strange noises. The radiator made irregular sounds, and shadows on the walls seemed to shift, even though there was no movement in the room. At approximately 2:30 a.m., Gary heard the sound of a key slowly turning in the door lock. He remained still, assuming a staff member might be attempting to enter by mistake. The door never opened. Instead, he heard footsteps inside the room. The sound was slow and deliberate. The footsteps moved across the carpet, gradually approaching the side of the bed where he was lying. Gary was unable to move as the sound drew closer. In panic, he reached for the bedside lamp and turned it on. The room was empty. There was no one inside, no door movement, no explanation for the footsteps. Gary did not sleep again that night. The following morning, he went straight to the front desk and reported the incident. As he described the noises and the footsteps, the clerk repeated what he had said the night before. He told Gary that room 413 had been permanently taken out of service years earlier after a woman had gone missing from that room in 1979. Her body was never found, and the room was sealed off after the investigation ended. The clerk explained that due to ongoing power issues from the blizzard, the hotel's room assignment system must have malfunctioned and mistakenly issued the key to 413. Gary was shocked. He insisted that he had stayed in that room and that he still had the key in his possession. The staff confirmed that the key was indeed labeled room 413. The hotel manager ordered a review of the security camera footage from the 4th floor. The camera showed Gary arriving at the hallway and entering the area where room 413 was located. However, when the footage reached the exact moment outside the door of room 413, the image suddenly distorted into heavy static. No clear footage showed Gary entering or exiting the room. The distortion lasted several minutes. There was no record on any camera of another person on the 4th floor that night. Gary checked out immediately and left the hotel. He never returned. Following that incident, the hotel management permanently sealed room 413 by bricking over the doorway. Today, the room no longer appears on guest maps, and employees are instructed not to discuss it with guests. The hotel still operates, but room 413 remains permanently closed. If you're still awake, congratulations. you made it through. But be honest, how many times did you look over your shoulder? If you enjoyed these true horror stories, make sure to tap the like button. Subscribe for more late night nightmares, posted weekly. And before you go to bed tonight, maybe double check that basement door, just in case it doesn't stay closed on its own. Sleep tight.